So with that, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Mike Moore, who is the lead litigant for Hillsborough County on this issue. Mike, welcome.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Berman. It's very good to be here with you folks today. I want to introduce a couple of people who are part of our team today. Tom Young is out here. Tom, raise your hand. Tom's on the legal team. He's here locally, a homegrown boy that most people in this room probably know. And then Steve Gardner's over here, and he and his son Truett are part of our team. And we have a big national team of lawyers who are working on this case and have been working on it for quite some time. Sheriff, I'm glad to be here in your place. I grew up as a young lawyer on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and I was elected DA when I was like 26 years old. So, Andrew, I was a young guy that was hoping I knew what I was doing at that very early age, and served about 10 years as a district attorney prosecuting criminals and doing drug cases and the like. And then I was fortunate to be elected Attorney General of my state for about 16 years and served with Bob Butterworth from down here. We were friends and allies and still are. So I come from a place of prosecution and locking up the bad guys and that kind of thing. In the last years of my career, I have been involved in lots of big cases across the country. And I'm going to speak about one real shortly because I'm going to use it as an analogy for what we have here. Because a lot of you people in the press that are here, you're going, okay, somebody's filing a lawsuit. What's the big deal? It's a bunch of paper. It's 118 pages of allegations against a bunch of drug manufacturers and drug distributors. And what does that really mean, and why should we care? I mean, that's what most people do when somebody files a lawsuit. Y'all remember the BP oil spill, right? Well, fortunately, I was asked by the judge in that case to come in and help resolve the BP oil spill and put together a settlement for all the states and the 475, cities and counties. Hillsborough County was one of those, as was Tampa. You got a bunch of money from that. But what was that all about? What that was about is somebody who did some bad things, BP and others, negligently allowed all this oil to spill, right? What should have happened is this much oil should have spilled. There should have been a blowout preventer that prevented that. There was a system in place, supposedly, to stop that from ever happening. A dozen people died on the oil rig, and then lots of the environment was destroyed. And you guys watched it on the news every single night. It was an oil spill. And everybody in the nation, in the world, was concerned about it. There were oily birds. There were fish floating up. Lots of terrible things happened in our environment. BP has spent $60 billion to clean up that disaster. What did BP do? They stepped up to the plate. They assumed the liability for the oil spill that caused all this damage and killed a dozen people, and they paid the money that it took to clean up the mess. What we have here is a pill spill. Same thing, except for something very different. 150 people a day die from this pill spill. 150 people a day. I was in the medical examiner's place yesterday, and by the way, wonderful new chief medical examiner here, and toxicologist Julie that's out there. Great people, but I was standing in the very place where the day before you had 3 people where autopsies were done here in Hillsborough County. Remember I said 150 people a day? Well, a couple of days ago, 3 people died right here in Hillsborough County, and they did autopsies there, and they showed that they died from, in this particular case, heroin, if my memory is correct. So this pill spill has caused 150 people a day to die. Many of them are dying here. This year in your little county, little compared to the whole country, you'll have 300 people die. What does that really mean? For every person that dies, there's another 130 people in your community who are addicted to opioids. Now do that math for me real quick. 300 people die and 130, that's close to 40,000 people in your community that are opioid addicted. Ticking, ticking, ticking time bomb. So why is Commissioner Merman so passionate about bringing a lawsuit and doing something about it? Why does the sheriff care? And why is your district attorney here, your state's attorney here? Why is the medical examiner here? Why is the fire chief here? Why is all the law enforcement, the medical examiner, why is your entire community concerned about that? And that's why, frankly, I'm so happy that Commissioner Merman has been working with me for the last really year and a half trying to bring this case, and we finally are here today to do it. It matters because you're losing disproportionately more people than a lot of other areas in this whole country, and you should stand up and do something about it. This lawsuit alleges lots of different things, but primarily it alleges this, that a company called Purdue Pharma started with a drug called Oxycontin back in the 90s, and they went around all over this country, and they told doctors there's less than 1% chance of a patient getting addicted to Oxycontin. No studies whatsoever to back that up. A complete lie. And they paid doctors thousands of dollars. They paid opinion leaders. They created these fake groups, American Pain Foundation, American Pain Association, to create the atmosphere that it's okay to prescribe all these drugs to all these people for everything from a tooth problem to shoulder surgery, knee surgery, whatever it might be. These drugs are supposed to be used for long-term cancer pain, and that's it. There's no study whatsoever that's ever been done that shows treating people for long-term chronic pain with these opioids is effective. None. There's certainly no studies to say that if you went and got your wisdom teeth taken out, you ought to get a 60-day supply. This county where you live, the top 10 drugstores, we just got the information from the DEA 3 weeks ago, and that's why we waited to file this lawsuit so we could include these distributors. In this county alone, there are drugstores in your county that got 50, 60, and 70 times more opioids than the average drugstore in the state of Florida. 50, 60, and 70 times more opioids. A truck backs up, and they deliver them to the back door, and they're going out here and going out there. Sure, some doctors are prescribing it that they shouldn't be prescribing, that were duped by these drug companies, but we think there's a huge black market of opioids here, and it's caused a disaster, a pill spill, if you will. And so what we want to do is what? Just like BP paid to clean up the oil spill, we want these companies to pay to clean up the pill spill. But more importantly, we don't want to have 600 babies born addicted to opioids in every year in this particular county. We don't want to lose 300 of our sons and daughters. And oh, by the way, just in case there's some confusion, the people dying from opioid overdoses, it's not the guy that's homeless laid up in the corner over here. It's somebody's 19-year-old college student. It's a mom and dad who don't have their 19-year-old college student anymore. It's a 35-year-old lawyer. It's a 22-year-old businessman. It's a housewife that got addicted from taking the pills for some surgery that she had, and then she continued to go on and on and on, and finally she overdosed on the drugs. So we care about people here. I've been all over this country on this. I've been working on this since 2004. I've sat across from the chief medical examiner, the chief financial officer, and the general counsel of Purdue Pharma back in 2005. The same lies they told the doctors and the same lies they told the American public, they told me on that day. A year and a half later, they all three pled guilty for those lies and paid huge fines. So I know personally what happened. I have a nephew that I've been to the emergency room 6 times with who had overdoses. Found a fentanyl patch in his mouth and a fentanyl patch on his arm, and he drank a fifth of whiskey. He got addicted because he got shot and was prescribed these pills and had a 5-year cycle of addiction. And the good news is he's sober now, and he's in college, and he's doing well. That's one person who's been saved. But you have 30 to 40,000 opioid addicted people here in this county. If we're successful with this lawsuit, here's what we hope. And this is just a tool. It's like a shovel. We're trying to use this as a tool to make these people provide some money so you can have prevention and education in this community, so you can have treatment in this community, so you can have emergency response in this community, so you can have more drug courts, so you can try to save some lives and make a difference here. That's what this lawsuit is about. And is there plenty of fault to go around? Sure there is. Some of the individuals are at fault. The government's at fault. The FDA's at fault. A lot of people at fault. But these people should step up and do what they're supposed to do. There's one last thing I'll tell you about this, the craziest thing I've ever heard of. There's a law in this country, it's called the Controlled Substance Act. Part of the Controlled Substance Act says that these pills because they're dangerous. They're controlled. They're Schedule 1 and 2 pills. They're supposed to be controlled from the manufacturer to the distributor that puts them in a truck and backs them up to a drugstore to the drugstore. They're supposed to be controlled all the way down the line. And if there are any suspicious orders that somebody ordered, that looks kind of weird that there's only, there's a drugstore on 22nd Street and they ordered 50 million dosage units of drugs. That looks a little weird. You're supposed to stop that order. Well, instead of stopping these orders, all these years, these folks, these big distributors, McKesson and AmerisourceBergen and Cardinal Health, they filled those orders. They sent them to those drugstores, and those pills spilled all over your community. And it's easy to see. If I had a chart up here, I could show you that in 2006, all these pills came into your community, and all of a sudden, the Oxycodone deaths went up. 2007, they doubled. 2008, they tripled. 2009, they quadrupled. And in 2010, 5 times the number of overdose deaths. A simpleton could have figured out how to keep those drugs out of the hands of all these people. But our government, frankly, these distributors didn't do their job, and we're here to try to hold them responsible.
Thank you so much, Mike. And now